guys, I'm back. Just some updates from my end. Over the past week, I had a PET scan and the results came back with no abnormal findings. As someone who's right smack in the middle of their cancer journey, just wrapped up chemo, which I'll get into in a minute, it was just really welcome news and encouraging, and it makes me feel like I'm going in the right direction. So I'm really happy about that. But as I was having a reflective moment about everything, I realized that there was such a learning curve I went through from the beginning of my diagnosis to now when it comes to all the different tests and things that have happened that I had to go through. And even more than that, things that I didn't necessarily go through that I wish I knew about that I could have pulled the lever on as needed. So I'm going to share my experience and what I learned, and hopefully some of this information will be of use to you. So let's get into it. So I'm going to explain the different tests in the context of the timeline of my treatment and the journey to get to my treatment. We're starting with February 22. I felt this lump in my breast. I'm pregnant. I go to my OB. She recommends me to an ultrasound, which I did, and I was cleared at the time. They said that my tissue was healthy. In May of 23, I go back to her again because I still feel this lump. And at that time, she orders me a mammogram, which I do. The mammogram comes back with what they describe as calcifications in my milk ducts. And from there, they recommended me to a doctor to get a biopsy done, which I did. And that biopsy is what gave me my initial diagnosis, which was DCIS, which is considered a stage 0 cancer. So in June, because of the size of my mass, which was about 8 centimeters big, I had a single mastectomy and they removed the entire mass. But while they were in there, they also found, number one, a tumor. So I actually had 2 different types of cancer in there. The second one being known as IDC.
IDC stands for invasive ductal carcinoma and accounts for 80% of diagnoses.
And they also tested my lymph nodes, and some of my lymph nodes came back positive for cancerous cells. So because of those 2 unexpected developments during the surgery, my new diagnosis out of surgery was that I was considered a stage 2 with a DCIS and IDC. They did a PET scan on me and nothing was detected at that point. That was when I got my treatment course. 3 things I wish I knew that I know now. The first being that you can get a mammogram when you're pregnant. I was told initially that that was not the case, but they have something called a shield that you can put over your body. The value of a mammogram over an ultrasound in detecting early breast cancer is like a night and day difference. And being able to leverage a mammogram to understand what's going on in your body can really just help change the chart of your journey, your cancer journey, and your health. The second one would be the value of a 3D mammogram versus a regular mammogram. I would definitely recommend looking into that if you're given the option. And for Black women in particular who have dense breasts, the 3D mammogram can absolutely pull a different level of detail than a regular mammogram could, which again can help when it comes to early prevention and detection of breast cancer. And the third is the value of an MRI. So before I had surgery, but after I was initially diagnosed at stage 0, an MRI would have been beneficial just to really understand what was going on in my body. I opted not to do it because the wait list to get into an MRI was exhaustive and long, and I knew I could get surgery before that point, so I did it. I don't necessarily regret my decision, but I think that it puts the doctors and the team that was treating me in a position to not have the full picture and make as informed a decision as they could have if they had the MRI. So it's definitely something I would have reconsidered moving forward. For my chemotherapy, they opted to do dense doses of what they call Red Devil, as well as Taxol. And that was over the course of 16 weeks. Then I'm going to go into 6 weeks of radiation. And then finally, I'm going to go into endocrine therapy, which is going to be somewhere between 5 years or 10 years, depending on how everything plays out. That part of my plan isn't completely solidified as of yet. So I now have a lot of tools in my toolkit. Just over the past couple of months, I've been able to understand how they work and when to leverage them. For starters, the easiest one is a self-check. And that is regularly checking your breasts yourself at home, whether you're in the shower, getting ready for bed, whatever the case might be, making sure you're understanding how your breasts feel when they're normal, so that you can understand when any changes happen to them and you can, escalate that to your OB as needed. Then we have the ultrasound and the mammogram. And for me, the mammogram turned out in retrospect to be more beneficial than the ultrasound, simply because the ultrasound isn't able to catch changes at the granular level that a mammogram can. So while the ultrasound cleared me with healthy tissue, the mammogram was actually able to find something and see it. Next is the biopsy. Now there are different types of biopsies that you can do. The one that I had was called a core biopsy, where they stick a hollow needle in the area of concern, and when they pull that out, tissue comes out with it, and they're able to test that to understand the path forward. Then from there, we have the MRI, which really is just an understanding of how from a higher level, how your organs and tissues function and how they're changing, if applicable. Then there's a PET scan, which really looks at your body on a cellular level to understand what changes are happening. And then there's a CT scan, which if the doctors at any point in time feel that you might have cancer that has spread to a different part of your body, they'll do a CT scan to understand what that looks like. I found this really good analogy online about the way that you can look at going through all the different treatments and therapies for breast cancer, for people who are going through surgery and chemotherapy and radiation, et cetera, et cetera. And really, they described it as dropping glass, so a vase or something like that. And when you're picking up all the big pieces, that's your surgery, getting the big chunk of it out. And then when you're left with all of those little finer crystals on the floor, and how you choose to sweep those up or vacuum them or whatever, that would be what the chemotherapy and the radiation, et cetera, is for. Thank y'all for tuning in. Until next time.